Hello folks. Today in the workshop we have the chalkbark maple that we started the initial design on this spring. It's now May coming into June. It's late May coming into June, and now is the time to do a summer update. These trees have very long internodal growth, and I am hoping that once I get this into a little bit smaller pot and get the roots compacted down to the point where it's not necessarily root bound but doesn't have a lot of free growing media, that hopefully that internodal distance will shorten. I'm getting some evidence in that now, as a matter of fact, based on the techniques I've done so far. And what I've done so far is let this thing grow. Like you saw some similar videos that we're doing some summer updates on, and let it grow and cut it back to 1 or 2 sets of leaves. I've already done this on this tree as well, and now you can see the second flush of growth that's growing on this. All these smaller, lighter colored stems that you see on the tree. Here's a good example of one right here on the back. This right here is the secondary flush of that growth. What I'm going to do today is the same thing I've already done once on this tree, which is taking these back to 1 or 2 sets of leaves. The initial flush of growth on this tree when it first came out, the internodal distance was, probably 2-3 inches, maybe even 4 inches between nodes. I've cut them all back to just 2 sets of leaves, and the second push of growth this year with this species, the internodal distance is shrunk to inch and a half. So I'm pretty excited about that. That means that the techniques I'm using are making progress on compacting the tree down. So what we're focusing on now is just going through, and the longer growth like this we're going to cut back to 1 set of leaves again. This tree's got a very voracious growing habit, and so I think that 1 set of leaves is sufficient based on the growth patterns and habits of this species. Actually, I cut that back even further to get another flush of growth. That was a 2 set of leaves I left on that branch. And these are really young branches, and it may be too early to be doing this, but we'll find out. I mean, a lot of these have 5-6 sets of leaves on them already, so I think that now is a good time to do this. Now I'm treating this tree like a Japanese maple, where I am not cutting at the node intersection. I'm actually leaving extra. Let me go ahead and do this one, and I'll show you up close of what I'm doing. Alright, this is the branch. What I do typically would be to cut it down here, right at the intersection. Okay? If it was an elm tree or something along those lines, that's what I would do. But on maples, what I do is I'll cut up here, and I'll leave this extra bit of stem. That way it's a controlled dieback. By the time this stem dries up and dies back to here, this node where these 2 leaves come out of will be established to the point where it'll start pushing branches out of here. So by the time this dies back, this will already be moving new growth, and it won't die back beyond there. If I was to cut it clear back here like so, it doesn't have enough time to die back to here. And I've seen these in Japanese maples. Is a very good example. It'll die back beyond this set and go down to the next set. So that's what I like to do when I trim the maples. Elm trees not so much, and others, but chalkbark maples, trident maples, Japanese maples, that's what I do when I'm doing my trimming back on those species. So it's just a matter of coming through here and hacking these babies back all the way around the tree. And again, the general idea is we're working on ramification on these trees, so the more we do this, the more ramification we're going to receive in one growing season, which is good for us. And The more ramification we get, the more development we get in one season. So, just going to go around through here now and take them all back to 2 sets of leaves. One thing I've noticed though on this second flush of growth, some of these leaves come out looking a little deformed. I don't know if that's just because they're not fully extended, the leaves aren't out fully yet, or if that's because this tree's not used to this kind of treatment. To myself personally, this is a relatively new species I'm working with. It's not new to the area, it's indigenous to this area, but it's new to me. I've only been working with chalkbarks for about 2 to 3 years, whereas a lot of the other species, the trident maples and whatnot, folks have been working with those for, I don't know, possibly hundreds of years in other countries, and we've learned a lot about the growing characteristics of those species and the do's and don'ts. But I don't know a whole bunch about the chalkbarks, and I don't know that many other folks do as well, so it's kind of a learn as you go situation. And that's what we're doing. We learn as we go. So this tree actually put out seed this year. I don't necessarily know how old these trees have to be in order to put out seed, but it's your typical whirlybirds, what some people call them. And so it does have little seed pods, so we know it's a mature tree. So I'm going to remove those as well, because there's a lot of energy the trees put into seed making. But what I've done is, that's kind of another technique that I've been trying to use, is to let it set seed to hopefully slow down the voraciousness of how fast these things grow, and how I'm removing, this one here is actually a sucker up here, so I'm going to remove that. I remember in a video of my Sengokaku video, I showed you guys about suckers, but I just want to show you. This is the internodal distance of growth that you get on these trees in the first flush. That was where it initiated from, and this entire stem is bare up to this first set of leaves. And I'm trying to get that from that to that. So that's the challenge that we have with this species, and that's why this species wouldn't be good for a Momay or a Shohin sized tree, is because of this distance. Now once we learn how to get that distance shorter, then we could maybe utilize this species for smaller sized trees. But realistically, with that distance there, it's not going to make a very realistic small tree, and that's why I've elected to collect a tree with such a large base on it, is because I might have a fighting chance at that, making this look like a realistic tree with the size of the trunk that this is, because the canopy is going to be large. But there's just no technique out there that I know of to get that distance down, so I'm trying different things with it to try to figure out what's best, and I think that I've gotten it. I mean, it's showing it to me, and I'll show you. Here's a good example of it right here. This is up at the top. You just saw the internodal growth of a spring bud. That's the spring bud, and that's the internodal distance to the first set of leaves on a spring bud. I cut it back to that first initial bud. Look at the internodal distance on the second flush of growth. It's much, much shorter. So, you've got an inch or so, where before it was 2 to 3 inches. Sorry. So you can see that, the second set of growth for this tree in this season is much tighter and much more compact. But getting that to happen in the first set of growth is the challenge. Maybe I let them shoot out a little bit too far this spring. I don't know. I'm going to try to cut them back earlier next spring. See if that works. It may not. It may kill a good portion of the tree. It may cause the tree to die back significantly. It's just a learn as you go type of situation. Until we know how the tree reacts, we don't know what to do to get it to conform to our will. So it's a learning experience, but it's one that I'm willing to take on because I love this species. In the fall, if you're anywhere in the Carolinas, in the fall, these things are just magnificent with color. They have anything that ranges from a buttercup yellow to a dark purple and a red and anything, any combination in between. And these things hold their leaves all winter, so these will turn brown, and it'll actually hold these leaves all winter. And really neat tree, neat species. I like the way the bark has these white patches. That's where it gets its name from, chalkbark maple, because it looks like chalky bark. It's got lichens all over it as well, and some moss. So it's pretty interesting tree. But that's pretty much the spring update on this one. We're just going to keep on doing what we've been doing and see how the tree reacts, and modify our techniques as we go. Anybody else that's out there that's working on these trees, if you guys have anything that you've tried that you've gotten some success with as far as getting that internodial distance more compact, feel free to either email me, post a video, or respond to this video on YouTube and just let me know what you've tried and the successes or the failures that you've had. I'm an advocate of using native species for bonsai as well as exotic species. You know, trident maples are not from here, Japanese maples are not from here, but this maple is, and there are other maples out there as well. Acer rubrum, red maple. You know, there's a few folks working with those, and that species seems to be fairly similar to this one, with the long internodial distance in the growth of the first flush. So it's definitely, like I said before, without sounding like a broken record, a learning experience, and just take it one step at a time. I'm going to do a quick 360 and we'll be finished with this tree. Thanks for watching.